So, yeah. So we kind of left off in Ka'u. Is that how you say it?
Ka'u.
Ka'u.
Yeah.
Ka'u. And you started to meet some of the elders that had knowledge not just of Hawaiian sovereignty and like the overthrow, but also like traditional knowledge, right? Or
Yeah. Like how to make stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my whole thing about, being a canoe builder, and like how I was told by them was that, I had to learn everything on my own. Stay separate from the Polynesian Voyaging Society.
So how did that even happen though about the canoe specifically? Because did you know your last name? You told them that name or?
I told them my, that Hawaiian name, and that's when they said, oh, well, that's why you're into canoes.
So you were already
I was already getting into canoes.
Got it.
Through my friend Kiko.
Right, there we go, okay.
So, he lived right there on the beach and had canoes. He had a double hull, a 27-foot double hull that, was his pride and joy. And it was a canoe that he had designed and built, or house that he had gotten, refurbished, and pretty much remodeled into his own style, where, it could be, he was out to do commercial canoe rides, adventure tours, stuff like that, and he was already doing that to a degree. And when I came along, I was just, his helper at first. His crewman, he started to teach me how to sail, and then when they got me my own canoe, I used it to survive. I used it to go get OPs, which is how I made my money, how I made my living. And I was the only person that, the locals would see this canoe going all by itself. They're like, it's that crazy guy all by himself going up the coastline. And out there, if you don't know what you're doing, you can disappear real quick, because it is the windward side. And over there, there's only 3 places that you could land within 10 miles maybe. And after that was, the tip of the big island. And once you hit that tip, you're gone. You're going to get the current, the wind's going to blow you out to sea. And you're going to Tahiti.
Yeah.
You're going down.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way of, how to do things, and it was interesting. I mean, I would go in the back there, basically, at first was, to do my OPs. And then during the summer months, when the hawksbill turtle would come, there was University of Hawaii, Volcanoes National Park, there was this whole study going on hawksbill turtles. So every 3 days, there'd be 3 brand new college girls that would man this station down there. So I made friends with everybody, and I just cruised back and forth, meet everyone, and I had a grand old time. Met plenty of people, and just continued to learn more and more on canoes. There was one day I went back there with a friend, we picked up peas, we were overloaded, and there was 2 girls that had hiked out to Punaluu, wanted to go back in, so on our way up, or our way into that place, we took those 2 girls, did our thing, got a lot of OP, came back to the canoe now. There's 4 girls that want to go back with us to Punaluu. So I'm like scratching my head thinking, this is a little bit too much, but let's try. So we get on the canoe, we start going out of this place, and my friend looks over at me and he says, hey, bro. And the water's coming over the edge of his seat. And I'm like, uh-oh, too much weight. And we turn around, get back to the beach, just in time that the canoe sinks in the water. And it's like chaos because the waves are big, they're crashing on the shore. And, you know, somebody could have got real hurt, but instead, we all made it safe, but the OPs just got scattered all over in the sand. And here's these girls running up and down trying to pick up the OPs. And I'm like, don't worry, just don't get hurt. And we make, you know, we get back most of the OPs, we fix the canoe and get back to Punaluu. But that was one of those situations where it was like, I told my friend, 2 birds in the hand is better than 4 birds in the bush. We just took too much, you know, over the capacity of the canoe.
Yeah.
So that taught me a lesson on never trying please. You cannot please everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although you keep trying and it'll mess you up every time.
Yeah.
So I tried never to do that again, and don't think I did anything that crazy again. There was one time that I went out and was picking OPs, and there was this old man that fished that coastline his whole life. And he lived close to the beach too. He lived just a little bit above where my friend lived, down in Punaluu. His name was Howard. Was his last name. And he'd go out on his boat and he'd go up towards the volcano and go all the way to, you know, the volcano fence line. And this one day I was picking OP and I watched him drive by me and kept looking like, hey, there's Mr. Howard. Not catching on that he's going back to Punaluu because the big water's coming. And you can see that ocean coming. I mean, from, I don't know, horizon. So that's 3 miles away is the horizon. And you can see the rock ocean coming. And I'm looking at it thinking, holy shit, I gotta get out of here. And so I started gathering up all my LPs, stopping along the way, picking up what I had dropped off. And I get to the canoe just as the big wind starts to blow. And I put up my sail, open the sail, and the canoe just almost shoots out of my hand, just starts going. And I jump in, and I'm going with the ocean. And from being, you know, pretty flat to 8-foot waves, 30-mile-an-hour winds, and the sail is just blowing. And I'm flying, I'm actually hopping, skipping over waves now. I'm getting nervous. I don't know what to do. I've never had this situation before. And I'm thinking, wow, what am I going to do? And I jump over a wave, I hit the crest of the other one, and one hull hits first. And the canoe starts to turn. And the force on the sail, it snaps the top part of the sail off. So the sail actually, the sticks break, which is the saving grace because that let loose a lot of the wind. I've used whatever I had to make sails, and so the sail that I had at that time was given to me by a friend, and I hand sewn it myself.
Whoa!
So it was more sail that I needed for my canoe.
Is that Andrew? Like
Yes,
moving
Andrew.
stuff, doing stuff? That's fine. Okay. It sounds like he's sweeping. That's good.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
So
So you made your own sail.
I used to
sewed it.
sew it myself. Well, I still do. I sew it myself.
Whoa.
Because I don't know, nobody can sew, so
Yeah.
you know, you want to make something. I mean, everything I've done, I've pretty much done on my own.
Yeah.
And to make one sail, I take the sailcloth from a Western style sail, and I turn it upside down, so the bottom is now the top. And I put a couple of sticks down, make it into a V, and roll an edge, put a piece of rope, roll it, sew it up, roll it again, sew it another time. So it's actually, I sew the whole length up, right around the sail, twice. Once in one direction, then I go back in the other direction. And it's just a spiral stitch all the way along the edge. And I have a sail.
Yeah.
So then I take some sticks and put it on the side. Now that's the yard and the boom.
Whoa.
So I have a sail bundle, which is one piece, the sail with the 2 sticks, that I lift up on a mast, so the sail can be separated from the mast. It's easy to set to one line, puts it up or down. I try to keep everything as, I use the old adage, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
And that seems to always work the best.
Yeah.
And try not to get too fancy or too complicated. But simple can be nice.
For sure.
You know, you can make something look really good and maybe not professional, but at least everybody thinks you know what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
and it's all neat. You know, it's functional. But that's how I've always done it. And that one day was good that I did it that way, because once those two sticks broke, I just spilled off half of the wind and was able now to control the canoe. And when I got towards Punaluu, where that opening is, the little channel, because the channel is pretty small. If you don't make it around the point, it's like Manini Beach. And if you don't make it around the point safely, you're not going to make it in. You know, you end up either at Kawa or Honoapu, which is, Honoapu doesn't give you much of an area to come in today. Probably ancient times there was a nice way to get in there. Kawa, you know, you could get into Kawa. There's a lot of places, but there's not a really safe place to land that your boat's not going to get banged out. Not like Punaluu, where you can get inside and stay in the safety of some calm water. So I made it in. Everything was okay, but that was the scariest I've ever been in a canoe, because I didn't know what to do, and I kept going close to the shore, thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Just jump up and swim to shore? The waves are big. I'm probably not going to make it. I got to try and make it around the turn. And when I made it around that turn, I was so happy. It came into shore. I was like, oh man, I did it. I made it. And then I get to the beach, and you know, after a while, Kiko looks at my canoe. He's like, what happened? I said, oh, bro, you don't know what happened out there, man. It was intense. I saw Mr. Howard going by, and I never take the cue to get out of there. And by the time I figured out what was going on, it was late. But I made it. So that was my experience with being, you know, really scared, not knowing what I was going to do. I thought I was doomed. I mean, I thought I was going to get... I was like, uh-oh, I'm in big trouble here. What am I going to do? And it just, I guess I was calm enough, although I wasn't calm. I was jumping from one hull to the other hull, bailing out water, trying to steer the boat, bailing water, going into the other hull. I mean, you know, because it was a low-sided canoe that was only 18 inches high. And, you know, the sea is 6 to 8 feet, blowing 30 knots. You're going pretty fast, downwind. There's no way to spill any wind off of your sail. It's just the wind's coming straight from the back. And as long as it's open, you're going to go for a ride. And I did, and I made it back, which is a good thing. And at that time, it was only it was double hull, because I remember jumping back and forth. So I already had made it into a double hull from its single hull. And yeah, that was a pretty tricky one. That same canoe, I had brought it to Punaluu, to Honaunau. Actually, I made it into a double hull at Honaunau. I picked the sticks from Glenwood, strawberry guava. I found 2 pieces of wood. Picked one first, and it was, you know, just what I wanted. Strawberry guava is really heavy, strong wood, and it doesn't break cleanly. It's got a lot of fiber, so when it breaks, it's kind of like bamboo, where it doesn't separate. It breaks, and there's all the fibers sticking out. So I used that wood and dried it, and then used it on the canoe that I built at Honaunau. Turned it into a double. Had a friend give me an old trailer that we rigged up so that I could pull it around with my truck. And my girlfriend at the time, she was a physical therapist. That's Caitlin, the one who lives in Inverness. So lived actually in Wood Valley, out in between the volcano and Punanu, way up in the mountain. It's a really nice place. Wood Valley is where the Tibetan temple is.
Oh, I didn't even know there was was there.
We used to call it the Hale o Dale. It's the Dalai Lama's Hale. It's a Tibetan monastery up in there. And it was right below where we lived. So we'd go by and visit them. And, that's where we lived. So from there I would drive all the way to Kailua Kona, drop her off at work, come back to Honau now and do canoe things there. First time I went fishing.
Because there was a community there doing stuff at Honanau. Why Honanau?
Honau now because that's the first place I came when I came to Kona. I met a guy that he was kind of like the Hawaiian guy in charge down at Honau now.
Got it. Okay.
So he had taken me in as a friend. Told everybody this is only I can park here. And yeah, he was a pretty cool guy. John Cho was his name. Crazy bugger. Tough guy. He was the one that kind of kept everybody in check down there. Tropical fish divers would come down, he'd kick them out in one way or another, peacefully, or if came to it, non-peacefully, which is, punching a guy, knocking him out, or holding his head underwater. There was one instance where he and I had flat this guy's tires, told him, "But you cannot do this here, don't come here no more." Got into a big argument, the guy went, do his tropical fish gathering, came back to his truck and his trailer, and wow, the tires are flat. Calls a friend, comes down and brings spare tires, more tires are flat. And the first time he left to go get new tires, all his tropical fish got given back to the ocean. Because John and I went over there and took how they did it was with trash barrels, They just the reef fish, throw them in trash barrels, put pumps for air, and we just went over there and took the barrels and dumped them back in the water. So he lost his catch, plus, I don't know, four tires, 6 tires maybe, we flattened that day. But he was a bit upset, but so was us, trying to protect the reef, and never saw that guy again. Didn't show up down there anymore, so and didn't get physical, so I guess was successful, our part in saving the reef, and that was 20 years ago. So I've been doing this kind of stuff long time. Saying something, speaking up, because it is our kuleana, it is our place to say something. If we know it's wrong, especially if it's for the ocean, which is, the lifeblood of the land. Without all that fish and all that ocean resource, we're pretty stuck. Now we've depended on someplace else, which no need, because our resources are right there. We just got to protect them, care for them. And that's how it was done in the old days when certain fish got scarce, or too much harvesting of one thing. The ali'i would put on kapu and nobody would gather. For a certain time, until the resources came back again, then you'd lift the kapu and you could go and gather. Whereas today, nothing's done until it's either too late or nothing's done. And you just let the resource disappear, like yellow tang, or right now today. When we started when tropical fish divers were at their peak, I would say, each person with a permit could take 30,000 fish off the reef per day. And out of every 1,000 fish, one would reach someone's aquarium. Out of every 1,000 fish taken off of the reef, one fish would actually make it to an aquarium, and the rest would die. And there were times that I remember one instance. I think it was at Honoka'au Harbor. Yeah, I think it was Honoka'au Harbor, where I don't know, just someone's entire shipment of fish died. And there was a couple thousand fish that was thrown into a dumpster there of yellow tang. I remember as a kid, if you flew into Kona Airport, when you're flying over from like Waikoloa coming towards Kona, and look down, there was a gold ring around on the shoreline, and that's where the term the golden coast came about. It was from that golden ring of yellow tang. Today, you fly over, there's no more yellow ring because they're almost always all gone. But that was one of the main species of fish that was taken off the reef, the yellow tangs. And I don't know, you know, everything had its place. So you take one away, something else, things happen when one species is removed. The balance not there anymore. And you keep doing that, you know, you go from yellow tangs to the ones with the orange spot on the tail, you know, we call them yellow, we call them, what do we call them? I forget the Hawaiian name. I know we call them Japan flag, but there's a Hawaiian name for it, I forget. And then the yellow eye kole, the brown fish with a yellow eye, people seem to have liked that one, and it looks really cool because the eye kind of glows yellow, golden color. It's a really good eating fish. And then just the regular maninis, the striped, they're the same family as the yellow tang, and they're all the same kind, kind of like a flat fish. So yeah, I never was in a canoe until I went to Punaluu.
Wow.
And I was, 32 years
What was
old
his
already.
name?
Kiko. A lot of my initial learning was doing not tours but little excursions with different groups. Like he had some friends that did some native friends that did Watsu. They were Watsu instructors, shiatsu massage in hot water. So whenever they did had a class, a teaching class, they called Kiko, and they come to Punaluu and we take them sailing around. And so I first started doing sailing with him. He had found a 34-foot canoe that was built during the time of Duka Hanamoku. It was built in the 50s around a hall that was made here on the Big Island, up here in this area, to be a freight hauler in the 30s. But because of steamships, the canoe couldn't get freight. And so it just hung out. It was, somebody had made a mold off of it in Oahu, and it made it for, because it was really fat and wide, they made it into a canoe for Waikiki to take out, in the 40s and 50s to take people out on canoe rides. It's the beginning of Waikiki, and you know, the whole hula girl and beach boy thing. He found one canoe. It was pretty bust up. Brought it back to Punaluu. He and I worked on it, got it.
He just found it? Where did
He found it in a warehouse in Oahu.
Oh,
Somebody
sure.
giving him a
Whoa.
said, "Oh, inside that building over there." I go, "Nice." I got an old canoe inside there. Looked like one from the Duke guys' days. You know, Waikiki surfing canoe. So he went and looked at it, and I think he bought it for like $600 or $300 or something. It was really cheap. It was 33 feet long, and it was a Kamoa style canoe, which is a really fat. That style of canoe is in a book called the Hawaiian Canoe. Its blueprints or whatever, or its schematics are in that book, Kamoa. So he and I had refurbished that boat, and that was the canoe that I used to take people. So this canoe, where it was supposed to, it was probably, like I said, it was a canoe built for freight hauling, so it was big, fat, big rounded, flat. The bottom was pretty flat, so it sit fairly nice in the water. It was a lot of area, so it held to the water really well, and could carry a lot of weight. Set up to take 11 people, with some of them facing backwards, where the outriggers were attached to the canoe. There was a seat facing back there. And I used that canoe to take people out on. Eventually, we did canoe rides at Pu'uhonau, the place of refuge. Every year during June, the last weekend of June, they have a cultural festival. And at the cultural festival, they put on all these displays and different events. And so Kiko and I would come with with his canoes, and we'd give canoe rides. And that's how I first got connected with the locals there. And then at one point, we took out the very first group of Hawaiian immersion students that went from kindergarten. They were going to graduate. So this was going to be the first group of kids to have ever accomplished that. And the head of the school that ran this immersion program, Hawaiian language, and learning, going to school learning or speaking only Hawaiian, not learning only Hawaiian, but having a regular school criteria, math, science, all this, but speaking Hawaiian. So we got to take them on a weekend. They asked us to take the kids on a weekend sail from the place of refuge, from King Kamehameha Hotel. And like I was telling you, the king's actual house site, from that cove there, sail them down the coastline. First day we went to place of refuge. The kids went, and they place of refuge took them, had a place for them to sleep at night, fed them, and we were just the transportation, and we were the means of them getting here. And at that same time is when I first met Nainoa Thompson, who is the foremost navigator in Hawaii. It was through that trip he came to give a talk and inspire the kids, and got so inspired himself that he decided that he wanted to come along. And I was lucky enough, because Kiko knew how much, and part of my goal at the time was to someday sail to Tahiti on a boat that I had built myself with my own knowledge. That was my goal. So to be able to sit with my Nainoa in the same canoe was pretty interesting. I mean, it was, it was awesome for me. It was like the best. And just from that one day sailing, I learned a lot about sailing, and how to, just how to sail, how to sail works a little bit better. Because it's pretty, I mean, it's interesting, Everybody thinks that when you're sailing, it's the wind blowing on the sail that moves the boat, but it's actually done properly. It's the wind sucking the boat forward, just the dynamics of the wind brushing up against the sail. Yeah, it's pretty, you can get blown with the wind, but you can also be sucked along with the wind, doing it the right way. And I learned a lot that just in that day sailing with him. It was pretty cool. We even got into a little bit of a argument as to who was going to captain the boat. And I'm like, no, I don't want a captain. You could be the captain. No, you the captain. So instead, we just made the kids the captains and kept cycling them through so each one had their chance. And so we got to sail the double hull canoe from Kinkamehameha Hotel down to Honaunau, which is 26 miles, I think. It's a pretty good sail, yeah. It was a good day. Yeah. It was awesome. But that was, that's one of the, for me, that's one of the milestones in my canoe life. The biggest one was, almost losing it out at Punaluu, being totally scared. And another one was, sailing with Nainoa Thompson. And just listening to them talk on the canoe, all in Hawaiian. Everything was in Hawaiian. It was something. It was pretty cool. And for me, not knowing much Hawaiian at the time, I never speak much. I just let the kids do, their own thing. And just they were not allowed to talk in English, but I could talk to them in English and tell them what to do and how to change and next person, whatever. So it was pretty cool. It was interesting. Something that one of my highlights was doing that and just having that, knowing that you're part of a group of special kids that did it first. To be able to go from kindergarten all the way to high school and graduate in and using only Hawaiian language. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's one of my highlights.
So did you build boats with Kiko, or did you?
We did a lot of restoring.
Restoring. Boats. So how did you build your first boat?
The first time I built one canoe, I went to the library and got one book that was, Kiko and his dad had made a canoe out of strips of wood. The kapuna had said that the forest is in peril and you need to go into the forest and find out ways that you can use, because there was a lot of old dead trees that had fallen, a lot of harvesting. It wasn't feasible to go up and get a whole log because of just the physicalness of trying to take this big log out of the forest, bring them down and work on them. But you could take pieces of wood of the forest. They had said, that the forest is in peril. If you could find a way to use up all these down trees that are down on the ground already. And when a tree is down on the ground, it's probably on the ground because something's wrong. It was either sick, dying, rotten, something, or just a big wind knocked it down. But after sitting in the forest for a long time, you're not going to find one whole log that can be used. in ancient times, they wouldn't pick one junk piece of wood. You know, the canoe builder or the kahuna kalaiva'a, when he went to the forest, he would watch for the birds that pecked on the trees. And those trees was no good because they had bugs. So then he'd look for the trees that the birds not working on, and that would be the trees that they would use. And then you come 100 years later, and guys like me going into the forest, and you're looking at all this wood that's already on the ground that you know is not prime, but it's better than nothing. It's what you got. So I started trying to figure out how to make canoes out of strips of wood. So I took a book from the library that was how to make a Pacific Northwest kayak. So Pacific Northwest kayak is made out of strips of wood to sit down inside kayak. So I took that book, read it 2 or 3 times, and then started to build canoes out of strips of wood using that technique and ideas, but with a little bit of change, like the way the book did it, or they do it in the mainland, is you build from the sides or the top of the canoe and you work your way to the bottom. And that was kind of, for me, that was opposite of Hawaiian style, where you make the foundation, which is the bottom. You make that first and you make them strong and you build off of that. So when I build a canoe, I start at the bottom and I work my way to the sides and I work to the top. And using that method, I made one canoe at first, and then I got involved with Kona Pacific School, which is a Waldorf school here in Kona. And they had asked to use my canoe to make fiberglass copies. So they made 3 fiberglass copies, and then the instructor said, how about if we make it out of wood? So I was like, well, this is how I make mine, out of wood, the one I'm doing now. And so we took my idea, gave it to the kids, and said, only kids can work on the canoe. Adults cannot touch. Even when they get stuck, they gotta fix their own problems. No adults can work on their boat. Well, 5 years later, they had 6 canoes that they built out of wood. That was a copy of mine, my first one. And the one I had, I eventually made 2 hulls for that and had it sailing around here until I sold it and was going to build another one. And that's when I went to Maui the first time. And that was 2000. That was just before 9/11 happened. I went to Maui 4 days before 9/11 with no ID. On pareo, couple t-shirts, a little backpack.
Did you take a flight or did you sail there?
I went on a plane.
On a plane, okay.
I went to visit my grandson who was just born. Ended up staying. Actually, I had canoes. I had a kids program at the beach here, where every Friday I had 12 kids that would come from the school, the highest grade kids. We had a little beach ocean program going on at the bay.
At Kealakekua?
At Kealakekua. And that time, Auntie Fern was involved. Aka was involved. I got one person from the canoe club in Honaunau to be our lifeguard. And so I got to take the kids in the water. You know, we had brought their canoes down. They're all lined up next to the heiau. And yeah, that was a pretty cool time. I took that small program, and there was a group from the mainlander had come for kind of like one field trip to Hawaii. And the actual president of Waldorf schools had come along as a chaperone. And so we put on, we made an emo, we made it into a little paino, one gathering, and had all the whole school and all the kids come down to the beach. And I did, I taught the kids the ocean and the water, and let them get into the water. Aka did protocol and blessings, and Auntie Fern taught them language and music. So we had this whole little thing going on here. It was pretty successful. Everybody was happy. And then during the summer, my grandson was born and my daughter called. So I went to Maui. I went there on September 5th. I remember September 5th I got to Maui. And 9/11 happened. I couldn't come back home because I had no ID. And was ready to start school again the very next week. And I'm stuck in Maui. Cannot leave. Got no ID, so I had to go through the whole process. Birth certificate and Social Security. And by the time I got all that together, I kind of liked Maui and I went to the canoe club and told them that I wanted to borrow 10 feet by 30 feet. And the club president looked at me with a strange face and said, "What are you talking about?" Because the canoe club was right where I was living. I said, "Oh, I like build me one canoe because I like go home." So he gave me this strange look, how you gonna build one canoe? Where you gonna get the wood with this and that? So I said, well, I explained to him what I did. I built canoes out of strips of wood. And he was very interested to see me pull it off. 2 months later, I had a canoe. He was pretty impressed. I'm in Maui, and I need a canoe to come back to the Big Island because I can't fly out a plane. Trade wind's blowing up the chain. So to get here, you'd have to make a kind of like a big fish hook, kind of far from land. You don't want to get too close to the channel because in between the channel is real rock. But by going through the channel, you can, we do it today, paddling canoes. And how we do it is we go at night. Hopefully it's kind of calm. It's, I cannot remember when it was really, really calm when we crossed.
Why do you go at night?
Because it's calmer than during the day.
Got it, okay.
So you go at night. Yeah. So anyway, getting back to Maui and the Maui canoe. At first, I had said, I'm going to build this, I like build a canoe so I can come back to the Big Island. So once I finished my canoe on Maui, I made, my usual 4-man, 22-foot canoes. 4-man because it was just the right size where one person could operate it, and it was big enough to get across one island to another. It was big enough to go out 6 miles from shore, 8 miles from shore, and would handle the rougher water. I built a canoe, and when I finished it, it took me 2 months to make this boat. I made it, and now the club president is looking at this canoe saying, "Wow, pretty awesome." So they tried to get me to stay in Maui and become part of their canoe club, which they eventually convinced me to stay, and I stayed. And I actually stayed in Maui for 6 years. Yeah, that first canoe, I built it there in Kihei, Maui. So right where they teach surfing, and I was part of that whole surf school scene. My canoe and kids in the canoe club. When I was there with the canoe club, we came up with the idea to buy our own surfboards, teach surf, lessons to the surf lessons were, I did the surf lessons to make enough money so that the kids, the parents, they wouldn't have to pay to be part of the canoe club. They didn't have to pay for anything, any of their needs. We covered it, you know, race fees or transportation, airline tickets to go to another island and go race. You know, the surf school paid for everything. And I was pretty much the one that did the surf lessons down at the beach. As you know, as I'm doing this, the kids are playing around in my canoe, and one day they come to me and say, "Oh, you know," well, they would keep borrowing my canoe. And so one day I go to the kids and I tell them, "You know, you guys would be way better off making your own canoe so you guys can use them whenever you like." They thought it was a good idea. Canoe Club thought it was a good idea. So I helped them to build their own wooden canoe, which they did until we came to the last part where we were going to start to glass it. And overnight, some juvenile delinquents come to the park and destroy their canoe. And it was like, it was heartbreaking. But it kind of worked out where, you know, we got a business to sponsor, put up enough money so that we could fix the canoe. And we gave that canoe actually to that company that sponsored us, or sponsored the kids. They paid for the canoe. They paid back all the money we spent building it. We just didn't have, at that point already I was pretty much going to leave Maui, so we didn't complete our mission as far. I gave all the people that had donated, I gave them back their money. And I left my canoe with the canoe club for the kids, and I just moved back to the Big Island. And so that was kind of the Maui story. But Maui, I learned so much more about canoes. Yeah. And then here, you know, I came back to the Big Island, and it was 2008 or 2009. Got back to Kona, and of course Auntie Fern and Aka and everybody welcomes me back. And, I start building a canoe in the park, which the state doesn't allow to happen. And DLNR and enforcement, you know, whole thing, but same, you know, I found a spot to do it. Built another canoe. My whole goal was to show that I am a canoe builder, you know. You guys shouldn't be stopping, this is something good. After that was done, I started to build. I had a bunch of guys, a group of guys. We went to the forest and we got more wood. Well, we got actual koa wood from the forest. Came back and I was building that at the park. And that's when the state and enforcement came, and they took all my stuff away, confiscated my canoe, booked me a bunch of tickets, went to court, won the case, won all 5 tickets, was found not guilty for every charge, and I actually represented myself, and got back my canoe that I had been working on, but it was already ruined by when they took it. They kind of twisted the canoe. And, you know, their whole goal was to mess it up, which they did quite a good job of it. So I ended up not completing what I was doing, but yeah, it was an interesting time. So, whereas Kiko was always welcome to do things, you know, because he always went the straight and narrow. I was always the activist, standing up for my rights to do stuff, and having to fight along the way to accomplish things. And yeah, so we are different sides of that. The law, I guess you would say. So that's why I do what I do, and he does what he does. And it's interesting, but we both sit down and we envy each other. I envy the things that he's been able to do, and he can't stop thinking about how I've just by myself have been doing, and have gotten so far in canoe building. It's been a pretty interesting road. So I for me, my count, how I count things is I've made 9 canoes so far out of strips of wood.
So out of the first one that you made out of the strips of wood, where were you?
I was here in Kona.
Oh, here in Kona.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that's when I made it. That one I made on Middle Ke'e Road.
Oh.
I worked for a guy. Well, he was a general contractor.
Yeah.
So he had big saws and those tools
cool.
like that. Yeah. So
and
a lot of space.
And that's when you followed the book of like the mainland.
Yeah, that's when I first started to do the canoe. Using that book, because that book I actually got it from the library, from Kealikekua Library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, at least just for me, I imagine like the moment of like first putting it in water.
That's always the biggest part.
Right? So, well, yeah, like you built it, you've done everything, you put it in at Manini.
Where everybody gets into the water over there, that little cove.
Yeah.
That's where I put the canoe in, right?
Yeah.
There. Yeah. That was the first time I put a boat, my own built boat, into the water was there. The first time I built a canoe or refurbished a canoe and made like the double hull, first time I put that in was at Honaunau. So between Honaunau, Kealikekua, and Maui, those are the 3 places that, and back here again, I guess 4 places that I've actually got to be or feel that brand new canoe in the water deal.
Yeah.
And then the last one was the koa canoe that I restored for the hotel. That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And like, so the first one that you ever fully built, not refurbished, but the first one that you ever built that you put in at Manini, like, were you scared? Were you nervous? Did you feel confident that it was going to
I knew it was going to work.
You knew it was going to work.
I knew it was going to work. Because I had pretty much used my old canoe hull and just, tweaked it just a little bit, and I made it. It was solid. It was solid. I had no doubt that this is going to be an awesome canoe.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, that first time you put them in and you start paddling them out, you can just feel the boat riding on the water. I normally when I put them both in the water and it works the way I want it to work, I'll immediately start. I always start thinking about how am I going to make the sailing part, the next step. This is a paddling canoe now. Now I want to make it into a sailing canoe because I'm kind of lazy. I'd rather sail than paddle. Sailing is so much nicer, and that usually takes me 2 weeks of more work to make a sail up the sail or sew the sail, start getting other pieces, start figuring out how I'm going to do things. And even that has been a process in learning where to put the mast, how to tie the line, how many lines you need, where you need those lines to be, so that they don't, so that it works.
Yeah.
Because if you put one line in the wrong place, things just not going to work. And that was all by trial and error. Put in one place, not opening fully, or too hard to pull up the sail, or something's not right, and have to adjust. It's a constant adjustment. Like I said, or I always say, being a master is not knowing exactly the right way for doing, but knowing what not gonna work, because you've already tried, been there, done that. That's not happening. So that's the difference between, for me, that's the difference between a master and experience and somebody that's book smart, that read a book and got all the answers, or watch somebody and still have all the answers. Unless you do them yourself, you're not going to get it completely right, because it's like the elders had said long ago, it's just too much. To be able to take something you build on land and go out there in the ocean, and your life depends on this thing working the right way. A mistake, you're not going to come back to land. And not making it back to land is ultimate in not working. So, or taking people out on your canoe and then putting them at risk. So, got to get it right. And for me, it's always been, try it myself. Make sure I know what I'm doing before I take anybody with me. The only other time was my daughter's husband, my son-in-law. He was a gutsy bugger. He would go with me no matter what. That canoe I built in Maui. Maui was pretty interesting to try and, just like Punaluu, The wind is so strong. You make a mistake, you way lost, you way gone. That canoe that I made in Maui, the first time we went sailing, I took my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson. I had always felt that, or had hoped that I would have somebody to share my wisdom with. So all these years of learning was going to go someplace. And when my grandson was born, I was thinking, all right, this is where my wisdom will go, my knowledge. So I said to my daughter, his test, if he was the one that was going to get my knowledge, I had said, we're going to take him up with us on the canoe and we're going to go sailing overnight. He was 5 months old. He was, some small guy, fit in a little styrofoam cooler. So we put him in the canoe, my daughter in the first seat, my grandson, son-in-law, and me in the back. And we left Kihei and we headed for Kaho'olawe. And we got pretty close. Kaho'olawe is like, I think 13 miles or something from Maui. We got about 2 or 3 miles off of Kaho'olawe. And we had gone out and I told her, if he don't cry tonight, he's the one that will get my knowledge. But if he cry and make fuss, we got to come back to land, then he's not the one. So it turned out to be he didn't cry at all. He was totally comfortable. Woke up twice to eat, went back to sleep. We went from Maui almost to Kaho'olawe, sailed a little bit up towards Lanai, and then came across the channel back towards Kihei. And we did it all in one night, or in one, we left at night, came back the next day. So that was an interesting trip in itself, and just feeling like, all right, he's gonna be the recipient of my knowledge.
So he's on Maui with his dad, or is
So he's on Maui with his dad. His dad is still into canoes. Hopefully, he'll get back into it. But as far as me teaching him, I'm not going. It's too late already for me to try and move back to Maui and start all over again. It's too hard. My body's too tired to go through it. So, yeah, I know my son-in-law knows a lot. He's helped with the voyaging canoe in Maui. So he has all my old connections. So hopefully someday they'll start to do it. Kaleo knows a lot of how I did things. So I'm sure he'll still learn canoes. And if he wanted to be a builder, he could.
Yeah.
And it's just my hope, but we'll see. Time will tell.
Sure. And you mentioned something too that I wanted to kind of circle back to, which I thought was really interesting, was that the elders, the kupuna said that that it was actually going to be best if you did it on your own. If you just kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, as I learned about canoes, there was Kiko, yes, but came to a point where, my way was different from his. We kind of separated. We were still good friends, but I was doing my own thing by then. And the elders had said, when I first started with canoes, is that, my destiny or my goal or their vision. There's one elder that had said she had a dream of me leading a group of 9 canoes passing Punaluu with kids, and that my goal was to build canoes and show that simple Hawaiians could still do this on their own, and that I shouldn't get, if I learned from the Nainoa Thompson and the Voyaging Society their method of celestial navigation or wayfinding, then I would be getting the same knowledge as everyone else. In modern wayfinding today, all the wisdom comes from one person, and that person is Mau Pilam. Mau was from the Caroline Islands, which is all the way on the other side of the Pacific, close to Indonesia. He was one of the few people that still knew celestial navigation. So all the wisdom today that's carried by all the navigators from Hawaii use his knowledge. So I was supposed to be that one person that didn't use his knowledge, used a different method, which was truly would be Hawaiian. Because like one of the elders had said, don't worry about how you do things, whether it's Hawaiian or not. As long as you're doing it, it's Hawaiian. So, when you come across something that you're not too sure of, if it feels good to you, then that's the right way. When it doesn't feel good, then something's wrong. Don't do it, or be careful, try another method. So, and that's how I've always done everything. I've always tried my own, figuring it out by myself, and if it didn't work, then try a different way. Got to use that that old adage, if insanity is using the same same choices give you the same results. Unless you change your choice, you're not going to change the result. So you got to keep, does it work one way? don't do it the same thing again, because it ain't gonna work again. Do it another way. And so you gotta experiment, you gotta try different things. And that's where, for me, wisdom comes from. The, you know, the actual physical doing something and it not working, or it working. What works, you use. What doesn't work, throw to the side and try something else.
So did you figure out your own mode of navigation? I mean, you must have, to some extent.
I had been studying for so long, and once I got sick, you know, my heart, my blood pressure, and all of this, I pretty much gave up. But I had been studying the sky, watching the stars for such a long time. And today I don't even look at the sky anymore. But I know, you know, and it's kind of hard, because if you use any kind of books, you know, the only way you're gonna know is if you try. Because if you start studying books, for me, if I start looking at a book, it can be about how Mao did them, how Nainoa did them, how modern wayfaring or wayfinding is done. And there's a part of me that really wish I went that route, because I would have gotten maybe a lot further, or I would have been able to go on other boats. You know, like I've never walked on Hokulea. I've never been on any of the voyaging canoes, except the Maui boat when they were still trying to build it. I did a little bit of work on it. Got to check it out a little bit. Other than that, you know, if my health had kept up, I don't know. You know, I think I just spent a little bit too much time close to land when I should have been trying to get a little further. But, you know, things just worked out the way they worked out. And I got to accept it, you know. What is meant to be is meant to be. If it didn't happen, well, it wasn't my time. And I had come to the point where I had hoped that, you know, the next person take over would actually do that. Where, you know, somebody going to be able to build their own canoe and voyage away from land, sail away and find some different land and say, hey, my name is so-and-so, I come from here, where am I? And that was my ultimate goal, was to build a boat, sail away to somewhere else and find people that I didn't know, introduce myself, and ask where I was, and then be able to come back. If I had been able to do that, then I would have fulfilled my my mission, I guess. So I haven't gotten to do that, and maybe it's not in this lifetime, maybe it's the next time. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's how it went, and you know, it wasn't easy. I mean, teaching yourself how to do each and every part. I mean, there's canoe builders today, but I don't think there's many that have all the skills needed to build a canoe. As far as, you know, harvesting the material to make, probably the wooden part, yes, but the other parts, you know, the rope, making all your own lashing out of rope, weaving stuff. You know, I learned how to weave coconut, ie, how to make 4 or 5 different kinds of rope from native plants here. Knowing the sky and the weather, then the ocean, you know, fishing. I mean, you need all those skills to be able to go to the forest, take a piece of wood, make a boat, sail away, not going to the store. There's not many people can do that. Still gonna need the store. I don't need the store. I can pretty much do everything without the store, just from nature. And I would think that there's less than 10 people in Hawaii that can still do it that way. So that's kind of like my plus.
It's a big plus. It's cool. Thank you, Macky. Thank you. Yeah, we went for a long time.